decent, and then how do you explain what happened over the next two quarters from there?
It was a game of momentum, wasn't it? For how well we played in the first, you could equally say the opposite. For the next two quarters, I mean, we were completely dominated in the second and third quarter. So it was more how do we turn off the scoreboard, because we just couldn't get our hands on it for large periods of the second and third quarter. So we certainly felt like that momentum was against us. Not a hell of a lot was working in some of the things we were trying to adjust just because we couldn't get our hands on it as effective as we could. That started to change probably towards the back end of the third quarter, just a little. But then in the last quarter, obviously, the guys were able to play out really strong, and we could have got to three-quarter time and could have been too hard, but didn't, and we stuck at it, and maybe a bounce of the ball one way or the other, could have got that even closer. So I'm really pleased that we were able to, despite the day not being ours, we're able to sort of play it out right to the end.
And there seemed to be a shift not only in the stoppages with the clearance battle, I guess, flipping between the first quarter and then later in the game, those middle quarters, but also the run that the Giants were able to get. So it seemed to be a lot of handball receives, just moving the ball quickly. How were you sort of trying to arrest that as they were?
Yeah, well, normally it's a real strength of ours. We did. Coming in with the way that they picked, we felt like that they'd probably try and activate a bit of speed. We've been able to manage that pretty well over the course of the whole year, not just in the last recent weeks. Gone to work on our game really hard on that, but it's not often we concede 70 points from stoppage. That is an enormous number. So that's something we have to look at. Clearly, they've got territory from that part of the game. The run was obviously one part, but when you concede that many scores from stoppages, and you're getting that territory, it's very hard to generate your game from your back half like we were having to do. But like I said, we gave ourselves a bit of a look at the end. It would have been stolen though if we did. But certainly GWS upped the pressure and they're able to get some territory from stoppage, and they're able to get the scoreboard ticking over from that part of the game.
I guess we saw Jacob Wiedering come off sort of late first, early second quarter with that corky. Is that all it is, and how do you see him?
Yeah, it is. That's all it is. But he was obviously quite limited in his movement. So there was a couple of things that we were managing there for a little while. Not the right part of the game, unfortunately. But look, they battle along and they'll pull up okay. But it's obviously within the game itself. It was a bit difficult for them to manage, but they forged on.
When you've got a key forward like Jesse Hogan taking really strong contested marks, what can you do as a defence to try and limit that impact?
We just probably didn't support maybe enough. I felt like it was, like I said, it's not too often we look at a scoreboard where we concede 100 points like that, and when you're getting that sort of clean ball through and your defenders are left one-on-one and we can't get the support, we've been really good at being able to support one another, and I felt like we probably let our defenders down a little bit, couldn't get any delay on it, and that, like every defence, that'll put you under pressure, as we showed in the last quarter when we were able to get a little bit of ascendancy ourselves, and it put their defence under pressure and we were able to hit the scoreboard. So, but look, at the end of the day, we weren't able to play our method for long enough, and you don't expect to have that big a time in a game where you just can't get your method going or you can't get your hands on the ball, and we held on for a little while and we needed a little look at the end, and we had it, but we couldn't quite get the finish.
When you've got a lead like that early in the game with 39 points, obviously similarly to the Swans game up here, what's the key to kind of trusting those structures to make sure you can hold on to it for a bit longer, because the Giants basically eroded it all in the second?
No, we didn't need to stay present. I mean, in some ways you could argue that the scoreboard shifted where our focus was, and we over a long period of time now have a great clarity on and a feel for when things work for us and when things don't, and we've spent a hell of a lot of time on what our identity looks like, and we've got enough experience to know what we want to value and what's really important to us, and the reality is that we drifted away from that, and when pressure comes, that's what we go back to. That's our fallback point, is when pressure comes, that's what you fall back to, and unfortunately that wasn't strong enough for us, and GWS are able to hit the scoreboard as a result, and we sort of end up losing that connection.
Tom De Koning was important important when you were on top early. Seemed to cop a knock though in that first term. Was he fine? Was he?
Yeah, no, he'd be okay. But look, I mean, I think that what it shows is that this game is extremely, it's hard. The competition is extremely even. We knew coming up here what sort of challenge GWS would be. They're a good footy team, and we're playing on their home, at their home venue. So it was always going to be a challenge. But we're trying to be able to become a very, very consistent football team, and and that's what we're still trying to achieve. Feel like we've got, I guess, some confidence from the public that we can perform, and we can perform when we need to. But we let ourselves down today. We absolutely let ourselves down.
Probably no surprise that Toby Bedford went to Sam Walsh. Seemed to work through it, but what did you make of performance overall?
Yeah, he's obviously the roles again. It was pretty clear on what was going to happen. Obviously, we tried to get a few roles ourselves, which were going okay, to be fair. But then when you're chasing the game, you've got to alter a few things. And obviously, he was one player that had a role from GWS. We had a couple of players that were trying to get roles done as well. But as the game was getting away from us, we probably had to sort of park those and probably be a little bit more aggressive with the way we want to be able to play.
Thanks, guys.
No worries. Cheers.